We drove over to Fifth Avenue so warm and soft, almost pastoral, on this summer Sunday afternoon that I wouldn't have been surprised to see a great flock of white sheep turn the corner.
Hold on, I have to leave you here.
No, you don't. Myrtle will be hurt if you don't come into the apartment. Won't you, Myrtle?
Come on, I'll telephone my sister Catherine. She's said to be very beautiful by people who ought to know.
Well, I'd like to, but...
At 158th Street, the cab stopped at One Slice in a long white cake of apartment houses. Throwing a regal homecoming glance around the neighborhood, Miss Wilson gathered up her dog and our other purchases and went haughtily in.
I'm going to have the McKees come up, and of course I have to call my sister too.
The apartment was on the top floor, a small living room, a small dining room, a small bedroom, and a bath. The living room was crowded to the doors with a set of tapestried furniture entirely too large for it, so that to move about was to stumble continually over scenes of ladies swinging in the gardens of Versailles.
A few moments later.
Tom brought out a bottle of whiskey from a locked beret door. I've been drunk just twice in my life, and the second time was that afternoon, so everything that happened has a dim, hazy cast over it, although until after 8 o'clock, the apartment was full of cheerful sun. Just as Tom and Myrtle reappeared, company commenced to arrive at the apartment door.
A few moments later.
The sister Catherine sat down beside me on the couch.
Do you live down on Long Island too?
I live at West Egg.
Really? I was down there at a party about a month ago at a man named Gatsby's. Do you know him?
I live next door to him.
Well, they say he's a nephew or a cousin of Kaiser Wilhelm's. That's where his money comes from.
Really?
I'm scared of him. I'd hate to have him get anything on me.
A few moments later.
Catherine leaned close to me and whispered in my ear.
Neither of them can't stand the person they're married to.
Can't they?
She looked at Myrtle and then at Tom.
What I say is, why do they live with them if they can't stand them? If I were them, I'd get divorced from each other and get married right away.
You see, it's his wife that's really keeping them apart. She's a Catholic and they don't believe in divorce.
Daisy was not a Catholic, and I was a little shocked at the elaborateness of the lie.
A few moments later.
I almost made a mistake too. I almost married a guy who's been after me for years. I knew he was below me. Everyone kept saying to me, Lucille, that man's way below you. But if I haven't gotten Chester, he got me sure.
Yes, but listen, we shouldn't marry him.
I know I didn't.
Yes, well, I married him. That's the difference between your case and mine.
Why did you, Myrtle? Nobody forced you to.
Yeah, well, I married him because I thought he was a gentleman. I thought he knew something about breeding, but he wasn't fit to lick my shoe.
You were crazy about him for a while.
Crazy about him? Who said I was crazy about him? The only crazy I was when I married him. I knew right away that I made the mistake.
She really ought to get away from him. They've been living above that garage for 11 years, and Tom's the first sweetie she's ever met.
Sometime toward midnight, Tom Buchanan and Miss Wilson stood face to face discussing in impassioned voices whether Miss Wilson had any right to mention Daisy's name.
Daisy, Daisy, Daisy. I'll say her name whenever I want to. Daisy.
Making a short, deft movement, Tom Buchanan broke her nose with his open hand. Then there were bloody towels upon the bathroom floor and women's voices scolding. Mr. McKee turned and continued on out the door. Taking my hat from the chandelier, I followed.
Neither of They can. Neither of them can stand.